So today we're gonna talk about the state of game technology, and we have experts like with different experience and different roles and different backgrounds here. And I think that's good for the roundtable, right? So when we get the people not from one area, not from one directions, but from different ones. So I suggest we discussed a few topics, but to explain to our audience where the topics are actually sourced from, I would like, first of all, to ask Chris to help me a little bit and to talk a bit about this report where actually we grabbed a few topics for today's discussion. So, Chris, hello. Can you please tell us a few words about this report?
Yeah, for sure. Hello. Good to see you all. So yeah, this is our 4th annual Gaming Report. I work at Perforce. I'm their director of product marketing, and I look over their media and gaming verticals. So traditionally in these reports, we've looked at like the tools and challenges teams have in game dev specifically. But as you know, we've all seen, and as we're probably talking about here on these calls and sessions, is just that, you know, we've seen game technology expand just beyond like game development use, right? So we've seen, you know, game engines, the tools that work with game engines start to be used in use cases like virtual production, animation, building like HMI displays for automotive. And I know Anastasia, you'll talk about that more in a bit. But we wanted to get some data on that, just like see how much game technology is making an impact for these teams. So we launched this survey. We actually co-launched it with JetBrains back at GDC this year and got a lot of great response. So we have over 576 respondents, 64 countries that are involved in this survey, and that culminate into the results we show in this report. So we touched many of the roles involved through those use cases, and there's interesting insights that we'll unpack today. But yeah, use that QR code displayed to get the full copy.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. It was a pleasure actually doing this nice report with Perforce. JetBrains is also doing like lots of researches around the ecosystem, and it was just an interesting experience for us to join Perforce in their effort and to grab some insights and to bring some like our vision also to the stage. So, okay, we will be just covering 4 topics today, and I invite our audience online also to join the conversation. So if you have any ideas or thoughts, just throw them into the chat and we'll read them through. And we will start with maybe a little bit unusual thing when we talk about the game dev, but we'll start about talking from where the game dev technology is actually used. Because if you look at the report, the first thing that actually spotted and attracted my attention was that it's not just games, it's so many other things. And I would like to say that I just collected here a few cases where the game tag is used not in gaming. And the first one was exactly that attracted my attention a couple of years ago when I noticed this. And I was like, oh, wow, so it could be used this way. So if you don't know about the case, it's like the film production and the like gaming technology used in the film production, like The Mandalorian, which was captured with this, you know, amazing scenes just created with Unreal Engine and projected on a big sphere. And so all the actors and like they just look at that as they're in the real world. So this real world is just simulated by Unreal Engine. And I just took this as a new stage of like, you know, a new evolution of the overall film production pipeline. So that looked quite impressive to me. But there are more cases of that, and there are lots of usages to the game tech. And I would like
Yeah, and
to
it's not
ask.
just like
Yeah,
virtual production, like we're seeing it, you know, animation, people are doing that in
yeah,
Unreal. I don't know if a lot of people here were at Unreal Fest, I'm sure, watching, and you know, just so many talks there, just talking about the pipelines they're using, you know, with game engines to primarily Unreal in the animation and for visual effects space to, you know, just really innovate there.
yeah, that's true. That's true. And I don't know, maybe our other guests have seen other cases that impressed you in terms of the using game tech not in gaming.
Yeah, if I might go first here, I've seen this a lot. I've myself worked in AR and VR in the automotive space, and they're more in the simulation space. But what I've also seen quite a lot is the defense sector or the military space, right? And that is probably has a very, very long history. If you think about America's Army, if you think about Bohemia Interactive's Arma, which I think started, or at least has a spin-off in defense, right? Where they do battlefield simulations. And obviously that's, or I guess it's not represented in the study here because it's a very secretive environment, I think, but I think it's a very, very big thing there as well. Because what we can do, a lot of the requirements are the same, right? In very low latency operations, high visual fidelity, and large scale simulations, right, that need to be very accurate. And I think game technology can does help there a lot, right? Whether you like it or not, that's something.
Yeah, that looks impressive.
Yeah.
Any other
Looking at
cases?
this,
Yeah.
looking at this, to be honest, I was surprised that there's so little representation of film or television in this graph. Which actually, it's more of a mirror on the audience that is getting this survey, because there's way more film and TV. Like Unreal is everywhere in the movie industry because of pre-visualizations and like rapid prototyping. It's not just the Mandalorian, it's not just the what's it called, the space, the screen, the thing, the stage where they filmed the Mandalorian. That's all rendered,
like the LED volumes, and the
volume. Yes, it's not just the volume. It's previs. It's like rendering scenes very quickly to see how they would look, like simulating lighting or simulating, because a lot of things, even more like more and more are shot in green screens, and you kind of want to put something in the background to see how it looks. So like Unreal is just dominating that industry, which was very, very funny when Unreal changed their licensing very recently, because it doesn't just affect games. It affects everybody, and there's a lot of everybody outside of games in Unreal. So all of these things are connected. Anything that like simulations, the driving simulators, or rendering for movies, or NASA doing simulations for space, which you kind of need to have like accurate, high fidelity simulations to be able to kind of like visualize what would happen. But anything that you can think about, architecture, anything is going to use a game engine, because the game engine is optimized for this. Everybody's using a game engine, and the game engine is a 3D rendering engine. It's used for games because that's how it started.
Yeah,
that's true. And I'm wondering if that's going to change the game engines themselves. Is it going to affect?
It's already affected. Yeah, it's already affected. You can see how Unity expanded Inland 5 in like the last 5 or 6 years to all kinds of different industries, because the revenue that they get from casinos or from automotive or manufacturing, it has a real impact for them. They're not just a game engine. And these are the things that you can tell by looking at their licensing terms for the different industries.
Oh yeah.
If there are highlighting industries that are not game specific, like direct game related industries in their licensing terms, it's because that industry has a lot of impact on their revenue, enough that they will make special licensing terms for that industry. And that's like since 2018, 2017, that's been a big thing.
Yeah, and it creates a chasm between games industry and maybe the engine providers or the other industries, because it influences it so much, as Andrea said, because there's all the money that some of the game developers think that it's taken away the focus of where the engine used to be going, right? And that's definitely something that has happened to Unity, right, with their recent announcement to kind of like refocus on the games business again with the engine, right? It remains to be seen whether they kind of like fork into other industries and make a separate product out of that, but it has certainly taken away from gaming in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I'm pretty much sure it will affect all the tech around this, and it's not just the engines. Like we are from the tooling side, sometimes when we do talk for with the users of the engines, and we kind of surprisingly realize that's not gaming. So we talk to them as they're doing the games because they're using the game engine, but then they answer is like, "Oh, but we are not doing a game," and we're like, "Ah, okay." So yeah, and I think we should stop thinking about all the game dev tech users as game creators only. So it's much more, and you can literally see that from the plots. And I'm wondering, actually, would be super interesting to see how these numbers will evolve and change, say next year and a couple of years, and if the share of the non-games projects here grows, or if some specific segment grows. I don't know, filming or any others, and maybe indeed the comment regarding that there might be even more, but they're just not in the survey because
Sure.
probably they were not reached with this message, and it didn't come to them, so they just didn't fill it, and we don't have them here, but they are using the tech already. So yeah, that's pretty much interesting.
Yeah, and I think it influences the the roles in the space too. Like I see people in these other industries represented as like those are other areas where game developers or people familiar with game engines are moving. Moving into like technical director, technical producer roles for
Yeah.
these
That
M&E
is
companies.
that is
That's really neat too.
Yeah, that's a good point. With the game industry currently imploding, the market, like the hiring market, it being what it is right now because of all the needless layoffs, uh, those people are going to move somewhere. And there's way more industries that are using this tech than just games. Those people will be more accessible to this type of surveys because they've come from that industry. And so I wonder how that impacts of like the reach of game versus non-game type is going to happen when people start having to diversify because they still want to work in this tech, but they just can't work in the game industry.
Yeah, and I think Tristan has a comment, right?
Yes, so I'm surprised to not see in those data the presence of AI training because, from my experience, something I see often is people using game engines to create a virtual environment to train agents. And I mean, I guess we can have this example with the BMW driving simulator, but I've seen people training more stuff different from stuff from cars. So I've seen example with trains. I've seen example from just making humanoid agent working in virtual space and be able to avoid obstacles. So yeah, instead of using pre-existing data you collect and you use it to train your agent, no, you just simulate an environment and you create your data on the fly. That's, I think, an application I see often. So I'm surprised it's not there.
Yeah, I think I did recall there were a few of those in represented in like the other slice here. But you're right, it's something that's growing a lot. I think if I recall this correctly, like people are even speculating that OpenAI's video creator Sona was like maybe being using Unreal Engine to develop some of its things or being trained through that. But yeah, that's a good point.
I'm sure we'll have a bright new future quite soon. Okay, so talking about the bright future, but let's look at the challenges, how they look to the those using the game tech now, and especially game developers. And it's interesting that while like preparing the report together with Perforce from JetBrains side, we were super interested to slice the data into two groups because we previously already saw that when the AAA studios and like midsize or indie studios, they have completely different data. So they talk about different things and different challenges. So we slide a few questions in the Perforce report by this specific metric. And indeed, there are differences. So, and if you look, for example, at the challenges impacting teams, they are for sure absolutely different for like smaller studios and like bigger companies. So I can't say that I'm quite surprised here, but yeah, that's kind of expected result that they will be different. But I'm wondering, so what do you think here about these differences and these specific challenges? Do you agree, or maybe any other comment?
Yeah, money's hard.
Yeah. Yeah, no
Yeah.
surprise. Yeah, we were
No.
at Gamescom in August, and we saw all these huge regional booths, which are supporting the local smallish game studios like GameDev in Germany. I guess that's the biggest one, and there are also others. And so, yeah, all these studios, all these starting in game development, they were going rounds and looking for funding. So, no surprise that it's like 33%, I guess. I agree with you here, Andrea.
Yeah,
But
I mean, collaboration is also a thing that impacts indies and small size studios deeply. It's just, I think, they're more worried about money than collaboration, and they'll just get by with whatever they need to get by, which sometimes is like worse than AAA. AAA has access to perforce licenses for like large teams and tooling if they need to, custom pipelines. They will have a tooling team that can supply that for their tools. So in one way, they're better off in all aspects than small and mid-sized studios, because mid-sized studios and indie studios will not have it. They will have one person trying to set things up, and then everybody else trying to get with whatever is available, which might or might not work for them, but they will struggle with whatever is there. And yet, AAA studios say that collaboration is a big challenge for them. I think that's because all of the other considerations are fixed. Like they're not worrying as much about money and everything else. And large teams, extremely large teams, much larger than other studios, trying to juggle everything around. I think maybe it's less about tooling and more about just having a bunch of people from markedly different backgrounds and technical levels trying to come together and put everything together.
Yeah, but it's also actually about tooling, because that's the request we hear quite often from big studios, is all related to collaborative tooling. So we hear often about those collaborative features, for example, in the IDE, or like something setting synchronization, so like how they can collaborate as a developer team and use the same setup, or some warming up or remote functionalities, because I do guess these big teams are now all remote, which like the COVID made it even worse. So quite many people are just spread around the globe, so and it's hard to collaborate, even just the time zones, right? So just think on that.
I think,
and when I say like collab, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, like, team collaboration, I think, is a natural issue for huge projects, right?
Yeah.
And if we look at AAA, we often have like teams more than 100 people, or far more than 100 people, and it's really, really difficult, even if they're in the same office, to put those teams together, right? And of course, tooling can help mitigate some of those challenges, particularly when people are apart. And Anastasia, that is definitely an issue that I've seen with many studios, even have multiple, like one developer having multiple studios across multiple time zones, right? And needing to move data via Pairpost, for example, across the big pond, right? That's certainly something that can help there and get together. But I think it's still that the nature of the thing that it is so big, right? And there are so many people needing to collaborate. And then if you look at indies, right, or smaller studios, they don't really have that problem of too many people, right? It's much easier to coordinate 5 to 10 people than it is to coordinate a couple of hundred people, right? And you don't need to have those hierarchies that you need to put in place. You don't need to have lots of processes that you need to go through trial and error to get everything together, right? So
yeah,
I think that's that part.
Yeah, thank you. Chris?
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I was thinking, like, I wonder, like, just how much of the data also represents just, what we've seen in the industry lately, right? So you have AAA studios, like a lot of them doing acquisitions. From those acquisitions, just trying to do integration strategies. So like, you're trying to collaborate amongst those teams and merge and consolidate them with their other groups. And then from that as well, like I've seen, lots of people that were successful in that, getting acquired or moving into the bigger studios, like starting to want to replicate that success. So then now they're going to start another indie studio and try to build that up again. And it's like that cycle begins again of like looking for funding for those projects and then trying to replicate that success.
Yeah, I agree. Any other comments here on the challenges?
I do find that indies do not use CI. If you're thinking people use CI for game development, no. Doing cloud builds for games for how many platforms you need is possible. Having the hardware locally, a bunch of computers and some Jenkins instances that are unpatched to try and get that thing is already a mid-sized studio challenge, not an indie at all. So I feel like when AAA studios talk about collaboration and their challenges in collaboration, they're talking about a slightly different level of collaboration than indies.
Yeah.
Indies, for them, collaboration means people sitting down and designing a game, or because they're a small team and they can just be in sync in the mind and design a game. While AAA are collaborating in how does the product, like the producer, see the state of the game today and communicate needs to the design lead that goes into the art director, et cetera, and that type of collaboration. Which is why I suspect they ask for tools for collaboration, but not because they need to transfer large files, although they do, but because they want to be signaled on, like, the cinematics director needs an approval on this latest cutscene from the producer. How do I signal that across the team? It's like a kind of like a more communication collaboration tooling need that AAA studios, I think, when they speak about the challenges of collaboration, that's kind of, I think, where they're going more, as opposed to basically, I need to run this thing on CI. I don't know how to build this thing for iOS.
Yeah,
so
I agree with you here. Yeah. Okay, let's move on to next topic. And yeah, we could talk, I guess, hours about that, but let's follow our schedule. So game engines. And again, so we did the similar thing as with the challenges here. So we kind of sliced the answers into two groups. And this is no surprise, I guess. The only surprise, which this year I was literally very happy surprise, I would say, is the growth of Godot, specifically for the smaller companies, as I saw it here. And the rest is maybe not that surprising to me, but I'm not sure. What about you? So does it look surprising to you?
Actually, I'm surprised that Unreal Engine is so high for indie games. I thought it was mostly Unity, but apparently that's ahead. Because Unreal Engine is known to be much more complex than Unity and Godot. So usually indie developer won't pick it up because they don't need that complexity, and they don't need to create some huge open world game. So that surprised me.
Okay, thank you.
I think I would like to compare these values with 2 years ago, maybe, if there's an equivalent. Like next year you can do a comparison of, because I think it might be a blip due to the whole Unity drama of the last year and the amount of people that ran away from Unity.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It might normalize now that sanity is restored, or it might not. Unreal also has a problem for indies, which it is surprising, but it might be that they are not shipping games yet, and then they will hit this when they're trying to ship a game with Unreal. Unreal, like, you can't run this on the web, and in certain platforms they just don't have an easy path to export your game to those and publish those games to those platforms, which AAA studios don't care about, because they don't publish to the web, and they will have teams that can port the engine if needed to whatever platform they want to publish to. But indies don't have that, and so Unreal is like not a full comprehensive engine for targeting every single platform out there like Unity is. And so that's a problem that comes up. People don't realize this until they go like, oh, but I want to publish to platform X. And it's like, oops.
True.
Well, I could agree on your comment on it might be a blip for Godot here. I believe it is not, right?
Oh no, not for Godot, for Unity. Sorry, Godot,
sorry.
not a blip.
Okay, yeah, because in Godot, what I see is a lot of professionalization and the creation or emergence of a commercial ecosystem finally, right?
Yeah.
And I think we see an even increased growth, and that would also kind of like open up the funnel for bigger studios as well, as the Godot project starts to implement more and more double and triple A needed features. Coming into that with W4's console ports now being available, right? I think and your own JetBrains investment into that tooling space, I think we will see quite a bigger growth even, right? Unity, I really hope for them, because I still think it is a fantastic engine, particularly for indies and smaller studios. With whatever it's offering, the new licensing will kind of like give it some life back here, right? Because I think that it is good to have a bigger ecosystem and actually choice in the industry, and that's something that I'm missing kind of like in the AAA space, right? Everyone, including now Halo Studios, like sitting around the Unreal Engine fire, while it is good in one way that we have much more development there, right? And I really hope everyone is feeding back to that central core, right? But in a way, I doubt it, right? And I believe everyone kind of like will maintain their own fork of Unreal Engine and continuously like merges the upstream changes, but not contributing too much back. And so we will see, I personally feel, a deterioration of technology and kind of like overall ecosystem, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, I agree here. And actually, with also with the Godot, I want to add that I was like interested when Second Dinner announced that they are now participating in Godot Foundation, I guess, and they will be doing some like games on the Godot. I think that's huge for Godot. I mean, I've haven't seen this kind of a company, this level of a company. I mean, in terms of the like quite a big studio supporting the Godot and trying to do some production games on that. So that would be an interesting story and definitely a new boost, I guess, for Godot with that. And I also wanted to address, like Khalid in the comments, he was wondering like what is the big shares of, like our own, for example. But I'm not surprised with that personally, because I think in-house engines for AAA is a must. I mean, you can use Unreal Engine, but at some point of time, many of this AAA just realizes that they need their own engine, and all these in-house, mostly C++ engines are there. And we know nothing about them, which is sometimes very sad fact to me as a like person working for like a tooling vendor, because we can't properly support them. But they are there, and the share is great, because if you do a like complex game, you quite likely tune in the engine, and you just start with maybe your own. And I think that's a common thing, and that's why the share is quite big. I even surprised that it's not that big.
Yeah, I think it was a lot bigger a couple of years before, right? If you look at particularly Sweden is kind of like the engine hub. Everyone and their brother had their own engine for their game, right? And most of them have now defaulted to Unreal Engine. And so we basically only see Ubisoft and EA still carrying their own engines.
And Guerrilla Games.
Yeah, there's a couple. I was just like kind of making a point. There is a very few that are still carrying their own big engine, and they are really, really specialized, right? And I think that speaks to Rebellion here, but also like, for example, specialized things like for racing games, right? Unreal Engine might just not be the best thing here, or for very large MMOs like World of Warcraft, right? A custom engine is still very much needed or warranted here.
Yeah, like commercial engines favor the bootstrap. They have flows for creating a game. You know, new game template, start here, put things there, and then which ends up they have to work hard at being both good at the beginning and good at the end. right? So Unity is very good at the beginning. Like you start off, like you have everything up front. You can just prototype super quickly and test it out and go. And a lot of studios actually start with an Unity, and then once they have a prototype in place and know what they want, they switch engines because their custom engine doesn't have a new game start here. They will take the previous shipped game, strip out all the things to have like the basic files in place and start there. There's no like easy way of starting a new game because that's not what the engine is for. The engine exists to publish the game, to run it at the target. So prototyping those things is hard. There's no easy start. Like let's start a new thing. The tooling is made for the game and not the other way around. And so like our own 11%, not surprised. It's probably much higher because depends on the audience that's answering
it's
these
for sure
questions,
high for
honestly.
AAA and less
Yeah.
for small studios which don't have this,
Yeah.
capacity for owning their own engine, developing it.
But
And
so
yeah,
many,
it's a good use
so many,
case to call
yeah,
out because
so many
like this
studios,
is
multiple.
yeah, and this is like a choice where like people could fill out multiple choices, right? So lots of people using Unreal and Unity, people using Unity with some of their own engines too, just depending on like what cycle they're in. So that's definitely good to point out.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would like to see the Decima engine released. Is what I'd like to see.
Let's talk to Gorilla. maybe they will. Okay, let's move to the last topic, and that's really like a safe space to talk about anything related to tooling. I couldn't go without this slide. You could probably understand. I'm like a tooling person, but there are a few interesting things here. So whatever you would like to highlight. So these are not all the toolings in GameDev for sure. They're just like the top in each group collected on this plot. So any insights or commands anyone says here?
Yeah, I don't think AI for generating code is there yet. I tried different ones, and it's extremely hard to have something that actually works. I see like almost 50% for ChatGPT. From experience, unless you want to create some Python script, if you ask something that's not an algorithm that everyone else already used, is going to give you garbage, and you're going to spend more time fixing whatever generated instead of doing it yourself.
Yeah, I think the current state of the AI is, to me at least, I see the bigger value in like explaining things or helping with some things than just the pure code generation. Like, let's take this take from Andrea about like starting some new game and like doing this kind of onboarding or something. If you have a huge in-house engine, if you like reach enough to get your own on-prem AI trained on that engine, so then you maybe could solve all these issues on starting on this engine easily because the whole knowledge and there is lots of help of then based on this knowledge from AI to you. So, and it could explain things, it could summarize things, which I personally find them like very, very valuable thing. So it's not just the code generation, which is probably not of the best quality. I would agree here with you at the current stage. But like all these summarizing things from AI are really, really helpful to me. I don't know about you guys, but I really love that.
Like, yeah, as a knowledge base, it's really good. You can analyze your whole code base, ask a question, or even if you, I don't know, search for some method or algorithm you don't know what to use, well, then AI can be some extremely specialized search engine.
Yeah, agree. Great.
Yeah, AI is garbage for most things, to be honest, and it's a waste of time trying to shove them into everything. I agree. Summarizing information, even like on Slack, there's people doing this because everybody asks the same question. Might as well get AI to respond to the same answer.
Yeah.
But like Midjourney et al. Completely useless. To never use this in your games, please, because none of this is copyrightable. And best case scenario, you'll just get taken out of store for using violating copyrights of other people because the AI generated a thing for you. I mean, worst case scenario, just lose copyright on your game, which is even worse. AI has been used forever in games and everything, not as AI, but as ML, to train data, movement data, NPCs, generating terrains, generating noise, like all sorts of like procedural generation is a thing in games forever, never, never. And their AI ML can actually like boost that because it can do not just random noise, but actually like learned noise. It can generate data that's meaningful to the context of the thing that needs the data, not just data. So those very, very, very specialized pipelines are a thing that is useful for this whole AI thing, where you can just plug those into the game because like you can do useful things with it in a very specialized way for generating assets, for generating stuff. Otherwise,
Yeah, I have to say that I've seen several very impressive usages of the AI for like creative roles. I guess it was a couple of years at GDC when there was a setup and like someone was just talking to AI, explaining like exactly as Khalid wrote in the comments, like Italian plumber with fuzzy mustache. So and like the person was just talking to AI and like saying, I want a street and then some houses here and then some park and then like, and it was just the prototype in scenes with the help of the AI. And it was so nice and quick and essential. And I was like really impressed. Like I felt that I'm like maybe my code and my boring stuff is too boring for this way of creating cool stuff. But anyway, so we have just a couple of minutes left. So maybe someone else would like to comment on this tool set, maybe something not related to AI in your mind?
Yeah, I always find it very interesting when I speak to game developers, and I'm a lot very back-end focused, so to say, and I hear a lot from these developers. Oh, I'm so forced. I'm sorry, Chris. Here, I'm forced to use Perforce. I'd rather use GitHub, and it's so funny because for a lot of like just software developers, Git is so much more straightforward, so much more yeah, directly useful in terms of interacting just with code, right? And it's interesting to see that total change in the games industry, where all of the rest of the software development industry is basically defaulted to Git, and then the games industry is very much focused on Perforce, and we all know why, right? In terms of like big assets and really all the art part of the production pipeline is very much this is where Perforce really shines. But it's interesting actually to see these high numbers in Git, and I assume, speaking to a lot of AAA developers who are not using Git, this is also kind of like a little bit of an audience fact here, how you, or of the people you have reached here, I think, because I think this is also a very different share in AAA and then other developers or indies, I would say, because I think indies go more towards Git, whereas everyone who is like more professional will default to Perforce for that particular reason.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Johannes. So actually, you're nice. I love talking to you people, but I think there will be Matt soon coming and kicking us out of the stage. So I would like just to share for the second time the QR code where you could get the report if you're interested and get more like insights, and please continue discussing that and like in social media somewhere where like you could comment on that. And thank you everyone for joining us for this roundtable. I hope you enjoyed that.